qualities of all the senses and yet is without any of the senses, unattached and yet supporting all, free from the gunas, the dispositions of prakrti, and yet enjoying them. Brahman knows all the qualities of the senses and the sense objects, and appears to have the qualities of all the senses, and yet he himself has no senses at all. It looks as if he has all the senses. This is because he knows about all the objects of the senses, yet he has no senses himself. We must understand this part of the verse. He knows about the objects of senses, and yet he has no senses. He knows about the objects of senses, but he himself is free from the senses. In the 13th verse, Shri Krishna described Brahman and his hands and feet. He said, Sarvatra panit padam tat, sarvatra shiro mukham, sarvatra shrutima loke, sarvam avrata tishtati. With his hands and feet everywhere, with his eyes, heads and faces on all sides, with ears on all sides, he dwells in the world enveloping all. After hearing this description, maybe one might believe that if Brahman has these hands, feet, eyes, intelligence and faces, then is Brahman not like us? We have hands, and Brahman has hands, except that we only have 2 hands, and instead of these 2 hands, Brahman has 24 hands. We have feet, and Brahman has feet. We have a head, and Brahman has a head, except only that Brahman's head is bigger than ours, and slightly more than ours. We may think that at the root, Brahman is like us. In the last verse, only the senses have been spoken about, such as the hands, feet, eyes, head, faces and ears, so that one does not have this misunderstanding. God immediately said the opposite thing in this verse, and God made it clear that just because he described the senses, this does not mean that Brahman is limited in the senses. No, nobody should have this misunderstanding that Brahman has senses like all other beings. Brahman is free from the senses. If one is free from the senses, for example, they do not have eyes, then they will not be able to see. If they do not have the senses, then they will not be able to understand. If they do not have ears, then they won't be able to hear. Therefore, a mathematician of the material world will say that if we have senses, then we will know everything, and if we do not have senses, then we cannot understand anything. Brahman has no senses, yet nothing escapes Brahman's understanding. This is the greatness of Brahman. It is said in the Shvetasvatara Upanishad that Apani paro java nigrahita pashyate chakshush shrunito karnaha. He has no hands and no feet, yet he holds and moves everywhere. He has no eyes, and yet he sees, and he has no ears, and yet he hears. Achakshu api pashyati, akarnaha api shunoti. The Supreme Soul has no senses. Why does it appear as if opposite things are being said? Gnan, wisdom, is formulaic. It feels as if opposite things are being said, but as soon as you sprinkle the water of bhakti, devotion, then it becomes clear. It can be understood from the perspective of a devotee what this is. God has no need for senses, but God accepts senses for the devotee. If there is a devotee and has performed worship throughout many births, and he tells God that, Lord, I wish to see you, God will say from the perspective of Gnan, wisdom, that I am everywhere, so see for yourself. The devotee says that all of this is true, and you are in each and every place, and I even see you everywhere, but I wish to look into your eyes with my eyes, Lord. The bliss of this is a completely different thing. The devotee wishes to look into the Lord's eyes with his eyes. When the devotee makes such a wish, then the Lord says, Is that so, son? I do not have any eyes, and I have no need for eyes, but if you wish to look into my eyes with your eyes, I'll take one's eyes. The Supreme Soul takes on some eyes, and what are the senses that the Supreme Soul takes on? They are an appearance. These are not the eyes of the Lord himself. The Lord does not even have any need for eyes. The devotee says that, Lord, I am having such nice conversations with you, but I feel as if I am talking to a wall. Lord, at least take on some ears and listen to my words. The Lord says, Is that so, son? The Lord takes on the ears so that he can listen to the talks and the speech of his devotee. Ek bar kaho Tulsidas mera. Just say once that Tulsidas is mine. When the cry of a devotee like Tulsidas comes out, then the Lord takes on speech. The devotee likes this very much. Therefore the Lord accepts senses because of the wishes of the devotees. When this happens, then the devotee likes talking and the devotee likes listening. That is why the Lord accepts senses. A husband sometimes says that the wife, that you wear that yellow dress today, or that you wear that blue dress today. The wife has no need to do this because she's wearing it nice and everything is fine, but she feels that because my husband has said it, I will wear it. The wife has love for her husband. The husband likes this, and so he wears it. In the same way, God has this love for the devotee and thinks that my son is saying this, and so I will do it. That is why God appears to have the quality of the senses, and yet is without any of the senses. God has no senses, and yet they are there, and God has senses, yet they are not there. If we look at this in another meaning, then the senses have three main uses. The first is enjoying material objects. You can call this enjoying pleasures. Secondly, the senses can be there for one's development and one's advancement. And third, the senses are there for doing good to others. The senses can only be used for these three things. A person needs senses to enjoy material objects, or to develop themselves, or to do good to others. If one has eyes, then one can enjoy material objects with those eyes. For example, they can look at beautiful pictures, they can watch television for 24 hours a day, and so on. People need their eyes in order to enjoy material objects, but it is not necessary that each and every person only enjoys material objects. If a person wishes to develop themselves and wishes to study further, then they will also need their eyes in order to read. They need their senses for their development. They wish to develop themselves. The majority of human beings use their senses for these two reasons, either to enjoy material objects, for pleasures, or for their own development. What are the senses of the Supreme Soul for? They are not there for enjoying material objects, and they are not there for development. What development has God got left to do? God's senses are there to do good to others. One whose senses are there to do good to others has no need for them for oneself. If a person's senses are there to do good to others, then this person becomes a form of the Supreme Soul and becomes a form of God. What proportion of our lives do we use for ourselves, and what proportion of our lives do we use for the good of others? And what without feeling of expectation? If someone gets objects from the other side, then one does not deny this. If one gets wealth in the form of prasad, from oblations from the Supreme Soul, then one does not deny this. But should one step outside the house because they'll get something for stepping outside the house? No. It is the quality of the senses of the Supreme Soul that they are there to do good to others. One whose senses are there to do good to others is a great saint. The saints of Maharashtra say, Ata Rahila Upkara Purta, meaning they are only working in order to do good to the world. There was once an event in the life of Samarth Swami Ramdas, who was a guru of the great King Shivaji. When Samarth Swami Ramdas was 22 or 25 years of age, he was a total celibate. One day in the middle of the night, he woke up in the middle of the night and began crying. The saint of the age of 22 or 25 had woken up in the middle of the night and was crying. His mother went there and saw that her child was crying. At the beginning, even his mother had a hesitancy. If there was a small child aged 2, 4 or 5 and it's crying, then the mother goes and takes the child into her lap and looks after the child. But this was a 25-year-old crying, whose wisdom was of such a high level that he was King Shivaji's guru. Such was Samarth Swami Ramdas. How could his mother go there? His mother, who was living an ordinary material life, was filled with emotions just like any other mother. The mother thought that, why is my child crying? No matter what, it is my son. Why is he crying? The mother began thinking in her own way. The situation was such that on that day, in one house in the town, one child was given a janoi, a sacred thread. The father of the child who was given a janoi, a sacred thread, used to study with Swami Ramdas, and they were both of the same age. The child was given a janoi, a sacred thread. The mother thought that such an event is taking place in a town, and therefore perhaps my Ramdas is thinking, what mistake I made that I did not study. If I got married, then I would also have a child. And when this child was given a janoi, a sacred thread, then the entire town went to his house, ate there and did everything there. In the same way, what if all of this had happened to me? The mother thought that my child must be thinking all of this. The mother thought all of this. Because Ramdas was crying, his mother went and stroked her son's hair with a hand, saying, Son, do not cry. If you wish to get married, then even at this age of yours, I'll find you a girl. Our house is so big and you are very good, don't worry. If you also wish to give your child a janoi, a sacred thread, then all of this will also happen at our place. Do not worry, do not cry. When his mother said, do not worry, Samarth Swami Ramdas understood that, oh no, my mother is interpreting the meaning of the reason why I'm crying. Samarth Swami Ramdas told his own mother that, Ai chinta karto vishvachi. Mother, I am not worrying about myself, but I'm worrying about the world. Samarth Swami Ramdas told his mother that, Mother, I'm not worrying about myself, why I did not get married, or why no child was born in my house. It is not that, Mother. The reason why I'm crying is because I'm crying about the world. I'm worried about the way in which the world is living its life. People get born, become older, get married, have children, get the children married, and then when the children get married, then they have problems with the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law. Is this the purpose of life? The world has the attitude of eating, drinking, and be merry. How can the world only think about these things? God has given us such a nice life, and people waste their lives on such pointless matters. Mother, I am worried about them. Ai chinta karto vishvachi. Mother, I am not worried about myself, but about the world. The Supreme Soul has made human beings so nice and has sent them here, but what do human beings do when they come into this earth? That is what he was sad about. If there is a light or fan that is left on running respectively in an ordinary room, or if the tap has been left on in the sink, then if there is a person who is a little sensitive and understanding, then they'll say that, why are you wasting this? The water in the sink is going away just like that. There is nobody in the room and you have just left the fan running. You are wasting it. If just one fan is left running, the light has been left on, or water is dripping from the sink, then such a person is thinking about how these things get wasted. Then does one not think about how one's own life is being wasted? A person does not even think about the fact that the whole life is running away. At that moment, Saint feel that Ai chinta karto vishvachi. Mother, I'm not worried about myself, but about the world. These are the pains that are there in the hearts of great saints, if you're able to understand them. That is why they have this pain, and God does not even want anything, so why does God come out? In order so that he can do good to people. It is so he can do good for people, and that is it. The Supreme Soul senses are like this. They are there in order to do good to others. That is why the Supreme Soul appears to have the qualities of the senses, and yet is without any of the senses. The Supreme Soul is free from attachment. The word asakta is used. You must understand two words properly because they are both written as asakta in English letters. The word asakti and asakti are completely opposite words. Asakti means clinging and asakti means non-clinging. They are both completely opposite words. The Supreme Soul says in this verse that he is free from attachment and yet he supports and maintains all. That is what the Supreme Soul does. This is the universality of the Supreme Soul. In these verses, the universality of Brahman is described. We also support and maintain people, for example, when we live in a family of 5 to 7 people and support and maintain them all. We make all the arrangements for them, but why do we make these arrangements? It is because we have attachment that this is my son, this is my daughter, this is my brother, this is my sister, this is my wife, this is my husband. That is why we do this. The wife wakes up at 6 a.m. in the morning and makes all the breakfast because she thinks that my husband should not stay hungry. She knows that he has gone out of town and therefore prepares a tiffin for him. The reason for this is that she has it in her mind that he is my husband. If a neighbor is going out of town, then does she wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning to prepare all of this? No. When we support and maintain people, then we do it with attachment. The Supreme Soul supports and maintains the world even though he has no attachment. This is the universality of the Supreme Soul. That is why you should keep something in your life where you have no attachment and yet you are supporting and maintaining someone. I often say this during my discourses. If the Supreme Soul has given us the power to do this, then we should support a family. We should have no attachment towards them. If they are our relatives, then this is good, but we should have no attachment nor clinging towards them, that I will give this to them and always keep my hand above them so that they will remain pleased, pressed under my hand, and so that they will get scared when they see my eyes. I'll keep them pressed under obligations. It should not be like this. You should support and maintain a family. If it is possible, then you should do it in such a way that the family does not even know about it. This is how you should do it. I'll show you this experiment. I will only tell you something that I have put into practice, otherwise how can I have the right to say it to you? Let us say that there are people who you know, such as your relatives, the event of their daughter's wedding is coming, and they do not have power in order to finance it, and they may have to make less costly arrangements, or they may have to sell their jewelry. They may be in a state, as if God has given you the power and ability, then according to the power and resources you have, put that money in an empty cover without writing your name on it, and without doing anything, just say that these are prasad, oblations from God. Go to meet that person and go to talk to them and sit to have tea at their houses. Then when they go to make tea, then take the envelope out and put it on the table. There is not even a need to give it in their hands. Do this and go outside. He may realize when he sees it, because it is hardly as if 20 people have come to his house, and he has to guess which one of them have placed it there. He is an ordinary person, you have gone to his house. He knows this, and therefore he'll realize that you have given it. Maybe he'll telephone you in order to ask, did you put this here? If he asks, then reply that no, that these are prasad, oblations from God. You should help them. Or you should help a student to study. Or you should help a patient. Or you should help a person become steady in life. You should do all of this without attachment. Only then will you know what the work of the Supreme Brahman is, and perhaps then you'll be able to understand the Supreme Soul better through experience. When we support and maintain one person, then we get so much bliss out of it that if we have really done it without expectation, God supports and maintains the whole world. And just look at his fun and his compassion, that he supports and maintains the life of one who believes in him, and he also supports and maintains the life of one who does not believe in him. This is the biggest of all universalities of the Supreme Soul. He gives to those who say thank you, he also gives to those who do not say thank you, and he also gives to those who oppose him after taking it. If you have gone to somebody's house when it is hot, and are sitting there, and if the person brings some nice cool water from the fridge, then we drink it and think, wow, thank you very much, you have given me such nice water to drink. He has just given you one glass of water, and you're saying thank you to him. Has he manifested that water? No. Do you ever say thank you to him who showers all that water from above? It is because you cannot see him that there is a difficulty. This is because we see the person who puts water in the glass and gives it to us because he's standing in front of us. And if you do not say thank you to him, then he'll frown at you and look away when he's going back thinking that, does this person have no manners? I'm giving a glass and he just gulps it down without thanking me. Try this. If you go to somebody's house and they bring a very nice water in a tray, then just pick it up, drink it in one go, and put it back. Do not say anything to him. He'll feel offended thinking that, does he consider me to be a servant? We have manners to such an extent that we must say thank you even though when we do not want to drink it. When we do not want to drink it, then we say thank you, no thank you. It is fine when we drink it and say thank you, but even when we do not want to drink it, then we also say thank you. Why is this? Because they have brought it. Therefore, why do you not have such manners with God? When rain is falling, then look outside the window and say thank you, God. People put a frown on their faces when it rains. How can they then have love for God? These are all experiments where one will be able to remember God in small things. When people have gone to sit in the rain and are sweating, then if they go to somebody's house, then the host immediately turn on the fan. The guests say that, wow, thank you for turning on the fan. When a gust of wind comes, then do you say thank you to God? If you say thank you to the person turning on the switch of the fan, then during a time when the gust of wind comes and touches you, say thank you to God. When you're traveling on the train or bus and a nice gust of wind comes and touches you, then say thank you. Only then will you be able to experience God close by. This is what a wise person is. God supports and maintains the world. God is free from the gunas, the dispositions of nature, meaning that he has none of the three modes of nature, namely sattva, goodness, rajas, passion, and tamas, dullness. The Lord will say in the 14th chapter that he is gunatit, free from the modes of nature, yet he enjoys the gunas, the dispositions of nature. I'll speak further on this verse when it comes up later in this chapter. Let's go on to verse 15. Bhai